Unique Live is the latest soccer card collection from Futera. Each week we'll release brand new cards via the website. Now over the years our soccer cards have been crafted with 24 karat gold, silver, porcelain, crystal and even diamond. But we don't just love a bit of bling here at Futera, no, we're passionate about creating beautifully rare soccer cards. You know, the kind of cards that you want to add to your collection so much that you contemplate selling your own dog to buy one. Sorry, Rover. With limited edition, officially licensed high-end cards available for some of the world's biggest clubs, you can be sure to find huge names in world football appearing on these cards week after week. So if you're new to sports cards, or you're already a big collector, or you're just looking to buy a present for the football fan in your life, well, this is for you. Now share this video with everybody you've ever met and head over to the website to buy yours now. We'll see you there soon.
Futera presents Soccer Cards and Chill.
Hello there, welcome back to Soccer Cards and Chill. This is a podcast produced by the publishers Futera. I'm Adam Partington, that over there is Mark Watson. This podcast, if you love soccer cards, if you love the beautiful game, if you're new to soccer cards, you want to learn more about soccer in general / football, this podcast is for you. So as I said, I'm Adam Partington, I am head of marketing here at Futera, and that right in front of me is the creative director, Mr. Mark Watson. He is going to do his thing now that he likes to do.
Sweaty Cup, Adam Partington. There we go.
Oh, a little bit
around a little bit. You like that, didn't you? There we go.
I did. Can you say
practically fluent?
Can you say hello in Thai, but in a northern accent?
Oh, Sweaty Cup. No, that's rubbish. I'm not. Let's not put me on the spot like that. I can't do a northern accent anyway. Why would I want to?
You did one. You did a good one then. You did a good one.
It was excellent. So, there he is. Here he is. He's not been playing much, has he? He's not been playing much recently, which is, or has he? We just haven't heard much about him. But he hasn't been knocking the goals in. Overhead kicks against Crystal Palace.
I don't think Newcastle have been playing much recently, to be honest. I mean, they've been playing, but not actually playing. I heard, I haven't seen any of the highlights, Mark, but at the time of recording, they played West Brom yesterday, and apparently it was one of the worst games of football in Premier League.
I can imagine it at the moment, to be fair. I can imagine it. It's not been vintage Newcastle this year, has it, to be honest?
I'm not too sure what vintage Newcastle is. I mean, if there are any listeners that are Newcastle fans, they'll probably be able to tell us, but I'm not sure what vintage Newcastle is. I suppose as 90s kids, you know, you think back to Newcastle under Kevin Keegan, Shearer and stuff, but is that really 90s?
Not
is
really,
that really vintage Newcastle?
Sorry? Oh, I'm not sure if it's vintage, but it was enjoyable. I suppose it was 90s. I'm so lost on sort of timelines now, but that was when I was a kid, so I was thinking about 14 when he signed for Newcastle, something like that. But I would say that's vintage. I'd love it if we beat them. See, I tried to do a northern accent again. Didn't really work, did it? My whole family are Geordies, yet I can't do a Geordie accent. That's terrible.
What I think I meant by that though is that I don't know what Newcastle actually are, if that makes sense. Like, you know, you mentioned it's not really vintage Newcastle at the moment in respect of this isn't the real Newcastle, but I don't know if this might be the real Newcastle now, because they've been up and down so much in my life. They're a strange
they always seem to be a sleeping giant. That's always like sort of what they're categorised as, but I'm not sure like how long you can be asleep for before you giant anymore. My family are all Geordies, so I've got a sweet spot for I can't say a sweet spot, soft spot for Newcastle and for Sunderland, weirdly. But this isn't the greatest time for either club. So you never know. Sunderland's just been taken over by Marseille's son. The old owner of Marseille's son has just taken over at Sunderland. So there we go. There we go. Topical.
For those of you that listen to the podcast, by the way, and can't see this, I'm holding up some of our Marseille cards here. That I don't think this one's been released. Actually, I best hide that. That was a Marley Ake rookie. I'm not sure if we have.
And he's left. So that
and he's
might
left.
might never be released.
Okay.
We'll just quickly
put
that
one. Well, these are only just marketing prototypes anyway, aren't they? They're just to demonstrate what our cards look like.
Yeah, just to demonstrate what a Marliaki card looks like. So that one's lovely, isn't it?
This one is a very nice one. Steve Mandanda, gold-plated mythicals available to buy on the website. But I think that area of the country deserves good football clubs, I think. So it's always quite sad to see where Sunderland are now. And as you say, I think Newcastle could potentially go on to be a real kind of giant in the English game.
Just while we're on Newcastle, sad news this week. Glenn Roeder passed away. I don't know how many of the listeners or watchers will know who Glenn Roeder was, but he was West Ham and Newcastle manager for a time. He was a great player for Newcastle as well. I think he played for QPR, a couple of other clubs. A mentor to Paul Gascoigne throughout his career, which is really interesting, almost like a big brother to him. But Glenn Roeder was sort of he never had the greatest managerial career, but he was always sort of like seen as like one of the big sort of the big brains in the football industry. So like if the England team needed somebody to almost come in as almost like a consultant to them, he'd sort of bring Glenn Roeder just because of his knowledge of football was phenomenal. He passed away this week from a brain tumor that he sort of had since about 2002, I think, whilst he was actually managing West Ham. Really sad because he was a proper football person, and that's there aren't many left, that sort of gave his whole life to the game and was a real scholar of the game as well. So we like people like that at Futera. We like people that are real football, like sort of addicts, which is what he was. And he was known a lot about the game. So really, really sad loss for football, for West Ham, for Newcastle, and just for the England setup as well, which he was involved in all. But so that's just somber mood, but we can move on from that. But certainly it's sad.
It is. It always seems a little bit trite to kind of move on back to what we're doing here at Futera, after we have conversations like that. But at Futera, or what we have done in the past, Mark, I did want to touch on something that we haven't covered on the podcast, and that is Futera FC. Do you want to give the listeners like a quick synopsis of what Futera FC was?
That's my favourite subject in the world, Eds. I think you already know that. And have we got time? Because this could go on for hours. This is my subject. Where do I start? Like, weirdly, considering how incredible it was, and I literally get goosebumps when I'm thinking about it. Hardly anyone on the planet even knew this existed, except for a very select few people that sort of got involved. So let's go right back to the start. You can probably put me right on some of these dates. I think it was 2009. I was on a stag do. So what do you call them in America, Eds? Stag do's.
What,
bachelor
in America?
Party. Yeah, what do they call them? Bachelor parties. It's a different name, isn't it? So I was on a stag do, and I'm from a place in England called Luton, which has got a pretty famous football team. Not the biggest, but a pretty famous football team. They were great in the sort of 80s and 90s. And they were going for a really bad time around about 2008, 2007, 2008. And the club had sort of were going into receivership, and there was talk about fans taking it over. And they weren't doing great either. I think they were in the National League at the time, so the conference. And we were sitting around a table, and I said, imagine if the fans could sort of take over the club, but also run the club. Like, why do we look at football managers having all the answers? Like, we sit around a table, we watch the game on a TV, we believe we know what we're talking about. We tell everybody that a manager's doing a bad job or a good job. Like, is it time to put our money where our mouth is? Like, could we take over a club like Luton with fan power and make a go of it? And obviously, it was a ridiculous idea, and everyone around the table sort of laughed out of the room. There'd probably been a few sherbets drunk at the time, so it just seemed like a crazy idea. I went home and I couldn't get it out of my head. So I was obsessed by it. I was obsessed by this idea that we could start a football team that was run by the fans, basically. And I don't mean run as in like owned. I mean run as in, if you thought that the wing backs weren't pushing up enough, you could tell the wing backs to not push up enough. And I can understand why I was laughed off the table, because it sounds ridiculous. Anyway, around 2009, Ads, when did you start with us? When did
it was around that time, but I think we actually got going with Futera FC in 2010.
2010. So we got together a team that had already been running. They were called the Black Swan. It was a pub team. And we sat down with them and said what this mental idea was. And they came back to us and said, I don't think anybody really believed that we'd pull it off. So I said, yeah, no worries. We'll call ourselves Futera FC and we'll become the first Sunday league team on the planet that's going to be run by the fans. So literally within 5 months, it was up and running. And it was, to coin a better phrase, it was a dog's dinner to start off with. The technology wasn't there. We'd sort of thought of ourselves as a YouTube team before anyone had ever thought of having a YouTube team. So we were interviewing players and putting interviews on YouTube. We were filming every game using an app on a iPhone 1 or something, and it didn't really work very well. It was a blurry picture that was streamed live. And somehow the fans watching the game, we couldn't really see much, sat down and basically started making decisions. And I don't know if it worked, Ads, but it was fun. It was really fun. And like the players started becoming mini celebrities. Their wives were getting sort of like messages on Facebook asking whether or not their husbands were fit for the game on Saturday, sort of like pushing them a little bit more, asking whether or not they were sort of like, they really wanted to be in midfield or if they thought they were a striker. And it started getting bigger and bigger. And it was getting quite amazing. And like, people had their firm favourites. We were making cards of them and putting them in the game that's on at that time. And we got to sort of the end of season 2 and it was fun, but that's all it was. And there was still this burning desire for us to take it a little bit further. And then suddenly we sort of started hearing about the possibility that we could go pro and we could in Thailand, which was like crazy to me. Like it was madness that people have been watching it and thinking, well, we could turn this into a pro team and run it from a country miles and miles away that I've never been to and I knew nothing about really. And so we had a few meetings and we met with the brilliantly named and the nicest people on earth as well, A and his brother B. They were the actual name of the people that wanted to own the club with us. And we sat down with them. And the start, I've never gone into this much detail. Let's go properly into it. So it started off that we were going to become the Futera Railway FC, and it was going to be with the Thai Railway, that we were having a Division 3 professional side in the league, and it was going to be called Futera Railway FC. And then it changed to that we were working with a car company called Seeker, and so it became Futera Seeker FC. And then before we could sort of get our heads around what was happening, it was happening. There was the biggest TV channel in Thailand was Channel 3. They started trying to make documentaries about it, sending film crews down. Social media started talking about us as like the Manchester City of Thailand. I don't think anybody really got their heads around what we were doing. I think they just thought it was sort of like foreign investors bringing loads of money into a club, which wasn't what was happening. All these sort of stuff kept on coming up, and there was some horrible stuff on Twitter, as you could expect. I had things like I met with a journalist one day who just sort of, we were having dinner, and then I realised whilst I was talking that he'd got a microphone on and he was recording everything I said. That quickly got put up on Twitter as well, with just nonsense being said about what we were doing. We were in a bar once where somebody told us that we were ruining the game of football because we were taking coaches out of it. Because basically what we were going to do is we were going to take a team in Thailand's Division 3 and we were going to run it solely by fans watching the stream of the game online. And they could go online and then they could answer polls, which they would set up themselves, that would ask us to do things from substitutions to how someone was playing, give them different roles, etc. And it really worked. And so we did tests out here. That what was really difficult was the internet wasn't great. 4G wasn't around at that point, so we had to run it off 3G. And we started training and we started doing tests and sort of like going to grounds and doing like sort of friendly games that we weren't sending out to anybody. It was just for us, and it was really working. We could see that this was like a next level up. Then we signed the deal for a stadium. The Futera Dome wasn't a dome, but sounds much better if we call it the Futera Dome. I can't pronounce the name of the stadium, so I'm just making it up. And then there were press conferences, which was just crazy. Like suddenly we turned up at these beautiful hotels and there was press conferences. My favorite story of the whole thing was that the biggest Siam Sport, which is a huge, like Sky Sport sort of style TV channel in Thailand, not quite as big as that, but it was like that kind of thing, asked us to come on for an interview, but it was all going to be in Thai. And so we had this guy called Joe, who was just the best character ever. He was just the most wonderful person. And he was our commentator, but he could also speak fluent Thai and fluent English, or so we thought. And so Joe put his name down to be interviewed live on Siam Sport about the project. But once he got on live, we realized that actually his Thai wasn't as fluent as we sort of expected. And so we were sitting... We were sitting here. This guy is legit. I loved him. He was just brilliant. We were sitting in the green room and watching as everybody's face was dropping with the answers that he was giving. And like, I can't speak Thai, so I don't really know exactly what it was, but it was sort of like, Joe, what do you think the result of the next game's going to be? And he was sort of like, Apple. It's not exactly that, but it is pretty close to it. I'm leaving so much out here, but it was brilliant. So we then our first game was penciled in, and we got the fixtures through. After we'd had this press conference that was massive, like loads of press there. It was like everybody was there. Directors from both sides got stood up and introduced everyone. We'd signed some proper, like, great players as well. Like, even though we're in Division 3, we had a guy, Fedi, great guy, a striker who we signed from Argentina. He came in to play up top for us. He played in like Division 5 in Germany. So like, this was a good standard that we had. And we had a few other great guys as well, and some brilliant Thai players. A player called Somsak Music Pan, who we re-nicknamed, obviously, Somsak Music Man. And he was a phenomenal player, probably the best player on the team. He was really good, and he went on to play like T1 in Thailand, and that's like the top league. Anyway, so we had our first game. The fixtures came out, and it said we were on a Friday, which is weird, and no one else was on a Friday. And Thailand had actually, like, normally the biggest teams in the country get the first game. But instead, because of like the excitement around this, we were given the first game, which was going to be fully televised on Thai football, on Thai TV as well. So we turn up, we had full camera systems up and mixing boards and everything, and it was brilliant. Like it was so much fun. It worked so well. We had people coming on live. We had friends of ours that were ex-pros, or like one of our great mates, Scott, who was a pundit for like one of the big channels in like Singapore and Malaysia. He was an ex-pro himself, had a really good career, and he came on and was a pundit for the first one. And it was brilliant. So that first game is probably one of the best days of my life, without any doubt at all. It just was so much fun. It went brilliantly. And from that point on, like the whole season sort of was just a bit of a blur. Like every week it didn't go perfect. Let's be honest. Stories that I'm sure I'm not supposed to tell, but I'll tell anyway. We had an actor on the bench at one point, just because that's what you do. we had a guy that had won X Factor or something, and he was assistant manager for a bit. These were not my decisions, but they were great anyway. We had a 17-year-old who turned up, who apparently played for Fulham or something, and he turned up. He wouldn't run in training. He'd only like score goals. It was bizarre and brilliant all at the same time, and it was so much fun. And the people who were involved in it were just phenomenal characters, brilliant people. We got on so well. So us and Seeker, we just got on brilliantly. We only wanted to do it for one season. It was a test to see if this could work. And like highlights were Joe's commentary, which were phenomenal, brilliant. Having a guy who could speak English and apparently speak Thai, doing both commentaries. We then brought in a Thai commentator as well to do that. We'd give him stuff at the start of each game, because he seemed to find it a bit too easy. So we'd give Joe some tasks at the start of each game where he had to use the lyrics from somebody's songs. So like George Michael was one week. I think
Oasis.
Guilty feet have got no pleasure or something was one of the lines he used throughout the game. And one of our players did a little trick. The Spice Girls was week 4. As the ball hit the back of the net, he shouted out "Zigga Zigga." It was, and you could have this whole thing. Another thing that was one of my favourites was that when we did it, you know that in a foreign country sometimes football can sort of be a little bit different. So like, I'm not talking like hooligans and stuff like that, but it's very passionate and you just don't know what you're going to find. And we had an away game where we were filming the game, and Gwyneth had given us definite guidelines on this about sort of like what we could show and what we couldn't show as games was going on. And she said, Mark, like, we're not famed for football violence in Thailand, but if anything ever happened or like there was a fight on the pitch or something, try and not show this in the game because it's not great. Like, you don't want people at home having to sort of see that. So we agreed. And then we went to an away game and the referee made a terrible decision against the team that we were playing. And the fans, for the home team, started to throw bottles at the players that were on the pitch, and that's very difficult. So I'm so not supposed to tell these stories, but anyway, we're going to do it. It's on the podcast.
We've gone. So, by the way, guys, just to let you know, the conversation with Frankie from Pullman Sports will be coming up shortly. I didn't even mention that at the start of this conversation that we have got that to come, which is a brilliant conversation. Mark, carry on because you've gone so far down the Futera FC rabbit hole now. I'm sure we're going to want to hear the end of this.
By the way, like, you can Google most of the stuff. I think Fox Sport did a whole 2-piece article on this, but I don't think it's on there anymore. So if anyone can find that, can they send it to me because it was fun. So we had this game against this club and a terrible refereeing decision, and all of a sudden the away fans started throwing bottles onto the pitch, whether it be at the referee or at our players. And it's pretty difficult to then turn the camera off while people are watching it. So we're filming and it's so obvious that these projectiles are flying onto the pitch as this is happening. Now, this isn't a normal thing in Thai football. We'd never seen it before. So it was like, this was a one-off, definitely. And Joe gave his commentary and he sort of gave me a funny look and he went, so I said, "Are you right?" And he went, "Yeah, keep the camera rolling." And then for 10 minutes, he talked about how the away fans were traditionally throwing balloon animals onto the pitch. And that the balloon animals that were being thrown onto the pitch were being ranked by the referee, and that's why he'd stopped gameplay. And this was a traditional thing that happened in football. And there's just some brilliant lines from it, saying things like, "The referee's stepped up, he's picked up one of the animals. It's a dog. Yeah, that's the winner." It's like, throughout the game as it's going on, he gave some of the most brilliant commentary you could ever hear. And if you go online, you can find it somewhere. I think there's I think it's still a website, futerafc.com. Anyway, I've gone way too far on that one. It was brilliant fun. It's the best thing I've ever done in my life, without any doubt at all. As when you were with us as well at the start of it, it was every week was just brilliant. We finished that season in 4th, I think. Someone might tell me it was 5th. I can't remember, but 4th or 5th. And then we stopped. We decided that was going to be it. We stopped. We've had loads of offers since. Like, lots of people are always interested in it. I think the thing that I'm most proud of is that this was way before anybody had ever thought up, somebody might tell me differently, but YouTube football teams, the idea of turning normal people into just celebrities. And I still think we're the first and only YouTube football team to go pro. I'm pretty sure that that's the case.
Yeah, and also to actually be managed by the I don't think anyone's done that still, have they? Actually be managed by the fans. I don't think. I mean, you look at the big boys now in that space. It's like people like Hashtag and stuff that we're all well aware of. Hashtag United, SC Dons, and they don't go that far with it. And I think what I like to say when I tell people about Futera FC is we were probably a decade too early with the British model that we followed, and then obviously you guys went and did your thing out in Thailand, which is hilarious. But yeah, it's always great to listen, mate, and I'm sure that the guys. Listening to that maybe only know Futera as a soccer card company / teamwear brand now, are probably not aware of some of that stuff. So it's
I think every time that this story gets brought up by anybody, whether it be in meetings or we're talking just the general public about it, the same question comes up, but how did you make money from it? Like, we're a company, so it's the first thing that anybody asks. And I think it sort of is testament to everything I've said before about Futera. This was literally, we did it because we wanted to because we loved the idea. Like this was no, we didn't have there was no thought process behind, oh, this would turn into something that was worth millions of dollars or anything. It was just that we wanted to do something that was really fun. And it was like, you have one life and sometimes you got to do something that's an absolute passion for you. But on the flip side of it, whenever I watch things like hashtag, like I'm so happy that happened. That firstly, that it sort of proved the concept. So we never proved the concepts. No one's ever heard of what we did, like, which always I think is a bit of a shame. And as you said, we're a decade too early on it, I think. But it's always great to see hashtag. Who are the ones? The other guys that love them. What were the ones that we were watching a while back, Eds?
SE Dons.
SE Dons. I love SE Dons. Yeah, they're brilliant. It's always exciting to watch both of those and just see how they grow, because it proves the concept, but it also just, I think it's a space that it should have moved into. Sometimes sort of mainstream football can be a little bit inaccessible for fans these days and stuff. So having these at hashtag and SC Dons is really important. So yeah. Really
well, incidentally, Frankie and I covered a little bit of that in our conversation. The fact that football has changed a lot now, and a lot of these players are inaccessible, or not as accessible as they maybe once were. So we had a great conversation. Another nice segue into this interview with Frankie is that, you know, Frankie does a lot of stuff because he loves to do it. And, you know, with the work that he does over at Pullman Sports Breaks, you know, it is, a lot of it is, you know, he will make sure people go away with something. It's because he loves it. He's not in it for the, you know, the financial element of box breaking, which is a very interesting take on it. And it was a great conversation, Mark. So I know that a lot of people listening, watching this will be eager to hear more from Frankie. He was probably the most requested guest that we have had on Soccer Cards and Chill. So without any further ado, I'll hit play and we'll listen to Frankie and I have a conversation about the industry, about box breaking, about soccer/football in general.
Sounds great, mate. Looking forward to it.
Hello there, welcome back to Soccer Cards and Chill. My guest today is a man called Frankie. Many of you will know him as the Pullman Sports Breaks. I don't think, Frankie, I've had so many tweets and messages and people asking for a specific guest on. So the honor is all mine, my friend. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. And we've got a fantastic community of people who really do all stick together. So that's where that comes from. So no, I'm very proud of the boys for putting me up and recommending me. So thank you to everyone out there, and thank you to you for having us on as well.
No, seriously, mate. No, the pleasure is all mine. You are, you know, you're very well thought of within the space. Why do you think that is, then, Frankie? Put you on the spot. I said there'd be no tough questions. There's the first pretty tough question.
It's a very tough question. You know, I guess it's one of them things. You know, we're very humble, and I sort of don't expect the love that we get sometimes, to be quite honest. And you know, when you see people saying, "Oh, you goat this and that," that's not how we see ourselves. You know, we see ourselves as just it's a hobby that we love, and you know, we've got a couple of people who help out behind the scenes, but obviously I'm the person up front, and it's not all just to do with me that is able to make this happen, because believe me, we've just shipped 150 packages over the course of yesterday and today, and I couldn't do all that myself. So it's great that we've got the support, and I guess it's just because we and the reason why we started this is because we wanted to have a more ethical approach and look after people, and I'd like to think we really do look after people. We all have this kind of saying that no one goes away empty-handed and no one goes away sort of disappointed. So maybe that's part of it, because everybody, you know, is looked after over here.
Yeah, I think it probably has something to do with it. I sense that you do seem to give away a hell of a lot. So I think, you know, I'm going to speculate that a lot of people listening to this, as we've already touched on, you know who you are, like what you do. But for those guys that don't know what the Pullman Sports Breaks is, can you explain it for them?
Yeah, so I guess it's a different approach to sports card breaks, and we did typically focus on football predominantly, because that's the sport that I know and that's the sport that I love. So we've just launched over the course of the last 48 hours our first ever NFL draft. So we're starting to move into other sports now as well. I don't think we'll do too much of that. I think we will be predominantly UK football, if you like, because that is just what we love and know, and that's what our community obviously typically like as well, because that's where we started. So it was natural that everyone who followed us and got involved from the start was going to be, football fans. So but then I guess where it all came about really was, I run a company. It's very stressful. I needed a hobby. My hobby was always going to West Ham. So I'm a West Ham season ticket holder, travel the country watching West Ham play, and absolutely love following my football. And to be honest, I just love going to watch football. Even if West Ham wasn't playing, I'd go to Charlton, I'd go to wherever. I just enjoy watching football. I love the atmosphere and I love the whole football day out. So once that was taken away because of the pandemic, it sort of, I started to get a little bit frustrated because I didn't have an outlet. I didn't have something that I could focus my brain on away from the work and stresses of home and everything else. So that's why I sort of picked up on sports cards. I guess my background really was sports stickers, because that's, what was always UK when you was younger. We didn't really have sports cards when I was younger. They were around, but stickers were kind of the real main thing. So stickers is where it all started, and then obviously the industry was growing, which I'd kept an eye on, and I dabbled a little bit, but the pandemic really forced me to throw myself into it again, and I got involved in a few breaks, and I probably dropped about £2,000 and ended up with an Arda Turan patch that was worth about £4. And at that point, I just thought there's got to be another way of doing this, because while I was getting the thrill and I was getting everything else, I couldn't believe. And the more I researched it, the more I saw it, the worse it kind of got for me. And it almost started to become borderline gambling. And I've seen a lot of people struggle with gambling before, and I've had my own problems and demons with gambling. And I really didn't like the fact that this fantastic hobby, which should be about collecting, started to move into what effectively is targeting very young people at times and almost pushing them into gambling. And I think that's a really bad thing to get them started out in. We have people who are 16 years old trying to get involved in our breaks, who their parents use their PayPals and they say, "Mum, Dad, can I get involved?" Imagine, them getting involved and spending their pocket money and really having a very, very minimal chance of actually hitting anything, in the hope that they hit something of value. That to me was wrong. And that was what caused us to set up the Pullman Breaks, and just to try and bring a more ethical approach. So where a lot of people work to teams, so you buy a particular team in a break, and there is a good chance that team doesn't come out, so you walk away with nothing. Or even if you do hit that team, the value of what you get is much less than what you paid to get involved. With us, we tend to work to packs. So if there's a box that's got 12 packs in it, you will pay for a pack. At least that way, you are going to go away with something, which I think is really important. And then if somebody even then doesn't hit anything of value, we then let them pick from our personal collection something that makes them feel like they've had good value for money. And it's funny because, we've got a personal collection here of tens of thousands of cards. A Jamie Vardy Chrome card might be worth pennies, but to the person whose team they support, that's actually quite a nice thing for them and quite a nice item. So to give that away, it's no loss to me, but it does make that person feel happy at the end of the day. So that's what we try and do.
So you run this whole thing then at a loss then, I assume, do you then?
Absolutely. So whatever we pay for the product, we divide that by the amount of people in the break, and that's what we charge. So we only break even on the product itself. Even yesterday, I picked up a particular product and accidentally miscalculated the value of it. And because I put it out at that price, I stuck to that price. So we lost £30 per pack on 4 packs in a box. So it's a massive loss. But I'd miscalculated. I wasn't going to turn around to everyone and say, "Oh, you've got to pay me more money." That wouldn't be fair. So that was just one of them things. And then obviously by then the time we do the shipping, by the time we package everything up nicely, because we package everything up with premium sleeves and we use, good protection when we ship things out because we don't want things getting damaged. It does come through at a loss. But it's not about that for us. It was never about profit. It was about the hobby itself. It's great for me because if I want a spot in one of the boxes, then I can get involved. And it means I'm not paying £500 for a box or £500 to get involved in something, I can say, right, I'm going to get this box. We're going to break that. If I want one spot for £35, then I can do that. So it's better for me because I get to have a little spots in some of the breaks that we have without having to pay full money for the product. And everyone else gets a nice bit of fun and a bit of value from it as well. And the streams are a lot of fun as well. We don't try and take it at the end of the day, it's people's money that's been invested. There has to be a serious element to it. We've got to, when people have paid good money to be involved in a break, it's not about being silly with it, but we do try and make it a little bit fun as well and a little bit entertaining. So I enjoy them. And to be honest, I can have a really stressful day at work and I can have a real tough day. And then I can turn that stream on of an evening. And by the end of it, I'm just smiling and happy and it's absolutely superb. So no, it's a lot of fun.
Is that one of the things you think that kind of motivates you to do this then? The fact that sounds like it's a bit of a release.
Absolutely, 100%. It has been my absolute focus during these times, and the one thing that has given me a load of fun has really taken my mind away from the stresses of life and actually really does put a smile on my face. And I absolutely love it. And I can't wait to get into something and see somebody's day made. And the messages we get after the streams of people saying, that was fantastic. It's really made my day. We have messages of people saying, do you know what, the beginning of this lockdown, I was really struggling. I was suffering. And this is the one thing that's really helped get me through, and that's amazing. Forget the profits. I'm not interested in that. Those messages are what makes it all worthwhile for me.
Yeah, no. Is it? I mean, you must be in like a relatively fortunate position to be able to kind of like profits are secondary. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I am fortunate. It is because my day job allows me to do that. And if I wasn't in that position, then you're right, I wouldn't be able to. So I absolutely do not begrudge the breakers who have to profit and have to cover their costs and have to make a bit. I absolutely have got no problem with that. And I get involved in those breaks. There are some of the biggest breakers. I had a really hot run the other day and it was fantastic. And I come out way, way on top and that was brilliant. And I've also had big losses, but those people, that's their livelihood. It's something that they're doing to make a few extra quid. It might be a case that they've started up breaking because they've lost jobs or they're furloughed or whatever it may be. And I absolutely do not begrudge them that whatsoever. And I think there's absolutely a place for that. But I also think there's a place for what we do. Those people who can't risk as much and can't really afford to, lose a couple of £100 in a break. If they come over to us, they know that they're going to, see a bit of a return for their money.
No, it's nice. It's very, very, very noble. And I can see, Frankie, I can see why people adore you and what you do for that reason. I'm intrigued to get your thoughts on the whole kind of investor / collector debate then, mate, because it's something that when I came back into the industry, I was like, I saw it as like there was a bit of friction between those two groups. Now it happens, I think, as I've been involved, that the groups aren't really clear cut and they kind of like merge into one. Like now you get people who like to collect, but they'll also sell and they'll look to flip. What are your thoughts on this whole thing then? Do you see the whole kind of rush to view sports cards as a potential investment for the future and a way for people to make money? Does that kind of make you recoil a little bit then?
To be honest, it does. There's two things that ruin everything in this world. And one of them's money and one of them's marketing. I'm in marketing. I own a marketing company. Also, but we ruin everything. We ruin everything.
Gary Vee says that as well, incidentally. I've heard him say that, and it's hilarious because as a marketeer, I also appreciate that, and evidently you do as well.
Yeah, no, we do. And there are things that come out that I've absolutely loved before and got involved in. And when the marketing train comes along and there's big, ambition at the top, that sort of takes over. And an example like Supreme and stuff like that and clothing. I used to like getting involved in some of that and some of the different clothing brands when they were sort of coming around. And then, the machine comes out. And I remember walking around into London, ready to spend some good money on some Supreme clothing. You walk up to the door and they're like, no, you can't come in. You've got to go and get a ticket from over there and you've got to do this and you've got to do that. It works for them. They sell out within minutes, and good luck to them.
Yeah.
However, the fact that I couldn't just walk into central London and go and buy something was madness, to be quite honest. And it kind of, it frustrates you a little bit. So, money, the investment side of it obviously has caused an increase in price.
Yeah.
It's caused a huge demand, and it makes it less accessible to people who, however, so this is the thing, people feel like it makes it less accessible. However, that's slightly incorrect and the wrong way to look at it, because collectors absolutely can still collect if they look at it in the right way. And it does mean that you have to steer away from those top tier players. And, if you don't feel like you're going to go and want to get a Haaland auto and you're going to be able, because you're just not. However, where I've just started out in NFL, I've watched the All or Nothing series on Amazon, and I've taken to a particular player, Chase Winovich. He's not sought after whatsoever, but as a character, I think he's absolutely one of the most interesting characters that I've ever come across, and I just absolutely took to him. So I started to, his autos go for pennies because he's not a quarterback and he's not these positions that are desirable, and he's not really a big name. I've picked up one of ones for like 20 quid. It's unbelievable. So if you do take a step back and you look at the true meaning of collecting and what collecting should be about, which is about your own personal likes, then I think it is still possible to collect in a real, low cost and easy way to get involved in. But if you are going to try and chase those big names, and I think, you only really should be chasing those big names if you are looking at investing purposes anyway. So, I think you can still enjoy the hobby as it used to be enjoyed before all of this money and marketing and investing come into play. But you've just got to go about it in a slightly different way. And a perfect example of that is Futera's websites with your drops, because I love sitting there and waiting for that rush to go. And I love seeing it blow up on social media and everyone starts screaming and going, I couldn't get this, I couldn't get that. And then I just creep onto the website, look for any true rookies that people have missed out on and didn't want because they're not a big name. And I just go and sweep them all up and build my collection through things. Nobody knew Haaland was going to be what Haaland is. Nobody. His stickers were pennies previously. Nobody knows whether the rookies that are on your website are going to blow up at any time. So I'll go and pick those up, really nice cards, without the stress, and wait and see what happens. And at some point, I will have one of those players blow up, and I'll be sitting here rubbing my hands together going, why you was all chasing the man who then gets an injury or whatever it may be, and I swept behind and picked up all the other bits and pieces and without all the stress. So, there are different ways you can approach this.
Well, I know you have some strong opinions on the way that we do things because you've tweeted them at us. We'll pick up on that in a second, mate. I think someone like yourself, who's involved in the marketing game, has their own marketing organization. I mean this, I'm genuinely intrigued to get your thoughts on some of the things that we're doing. So we will come to them shortly. But I just want to go back to something. So you mentioned like the investors. Well, we were talking about the investor/collection thing, and Mitch from LDN Card said something on the podcast a couple of months back now, before Christmas, I think it was, where he said, if you are looking to make money on certain cards, if you are in this to do that, what he would say though is still go and try and aim for players that you like. So this speaks to what you were talking about with the guy in the NFL that you've identified, because Mitch said, if the bottom falls out of the market and it actually turns out that the cards that you've purchased aren't worth a lot, at least then you have some affinity with those cards, that you kind of like them. So I get that. I think that makes a lot of sense, really, because he loves Beckham. So it just so happens that Beckham is also a desirable player and people want his cards and his stickers. But if tomorrow nobody wants them anymore, you know what, he's still got a nice collection that he has, and he just enjoys having that. So I think there's a lot in that, mate. You mentioned, sorry, Frankie, you got something else you want to say on that? Or?
No, it was just, I've got something sitting next to me there, which is that David Beckham
that's a good
card.
one, isn't it?
which, I mean, that literally arrived yesterday. The reason I picked that up is because I had those Predator boots and I love those Predator boots. And that kit was used in the sort of first tournament that I remember when I was a child. Even down to those big players, you can still collect them, but you just have to go after the things that, you know, are not necessarily the ones that the investors are really chasing and ploughing the money into. So, yeah, you've just got to be a little bit savvy and just go a little bit. I think Soccer Silverbacks tells it very well. You know, just go on the alternative route. Just look for the things that are not the most desirable, or the things that are going under the radar, and then you can still get involved.
Yeah, because we're not in a position, we probably never will be, where you won't be able to get any cards, because, you know, the hobby has grown, right, and that's put pressure on those more desirable players. But as you say, I mean, we have lots. I think you and Soccer Silverback were speaking about this on Twitter yesterday, and you were talking about some of the cards that's still available on our site, which, you know, I sometimes look at it and go, I don't really know how we've still got some of them. They've genuinely been missed. You know, so yeah, you can still get cards, and you're right. You know, that one there is a great example, and I really like that as well because we're a similar age. So that's from France '98, I think.
Perfect example of that. Pepe memorabilia card. I know he's not having great performances at the moment, but he's got all the talent in the world. And watch as Arteta sorts that Arsenal team out and they start to perform well again. All of a sudden, that Pepe card has got huge potential, and I cannot believe it's still sitting there on the website.
Yeah, it is a little bit crazy, but again, I think it's just people do get drawn to your Neymars and your Mbappes and stuff that do sell out incredibly quickly. Just on this, we have had people debating whether or not we've been infiltrated by bots on the site. We haven't found any specific like evidence of that. It's very hard to we haven't seen anything from our side, but we do have to listen to these things. So we are introducing a couple of things this Wednesday, capture forms and whatever, that might act as a counterweight. I don't know if you can ever properly eradicate it, because these people who come up with these bots and stuff are really clever, and they always find ways around them. But I think there are certain things that you can do as a brand to put in place. So I just wanted to drop that in, mate. You said that you kind of got into this. So you're a big football fan, you're a West Ham fan, travel up and down the country, West Ham, that's great. But then you said you kind of got into sports cards, soccer cards specifically, like at the kind of the turn of the year when the pandemic started to hit. And so is that what spurred you on then? Do you kind of attribute your interest in this hobby down to the whole first lockdown and stuff, Frankie?
To be honest, it was there was always that interest there. I'd always been dabbling in little bits, you know, that I've always been collecting in small amounts. I had picked up loads of Merlin, like loads, before the boom happened. And I mean, I've got boxes sitting on the shelf that I'd paid, you know, 50 quid for an entire box, which now, I mean, it's gone crazy with those products. You can't even find them online anymore.
I know.
But that was me purchasing things from my childhood. What really started getting me back involved was more nostalgia, and nostalgia's been a big thing over the last few years. Might be a midlife crisis, to be perfectly honest with you. I
know nothing about it.
It was just, you know, pick up some bits that made me reminisce and go back to my childhood again. And then from there, it started bringing me into the other aspects of the hobby and what was going on. And so it happened a little bit before the pandemic, to be quite honest. However, the pandemic accelerated it massively. So that was the real driver for me to, you know, start really sort of getting into the hobby seriously again.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because I did want to ask you actually. You know, how much do you think that the whole situation with the coronavirus has had an impact on the hobby in general? You know, has this been one of the contributing factors to the growth in the hobby? The answer that I've had from this, Frankie, is from other guys, is like, no, it's been a contributing factor, but this would have kind of happened anyway. Are you so sure that's correct? Do you agree with that?
No, I don't. People who get involved in our breaks, they turn around and say to me, "This is my new going to the pub on a Friday night." This is my new, you know, people have got the people have still continued to work throughout this whole process and still have the financial means, don't have the outlets that they normally do, and are not spending their money on the normal things they spend their money on. And it does mean that they've looked elsewhere. And because again, the way marketing works, you end up falling into where the attention is. People are seeing more and more sports cards. They're seeing the buzz. They're seeing all the content. They're seeing the rise in prices and the investment side of things. And it just becomes interesting. And when you're sitting at home and you haven't got a lot to do, and then you stumble across sports cards and the real buzz that's around them at the moment, it's very difficult not to be attracted to that. So there, without question, the pandemic has hugely contributed to the whole what's happened. The question more is not, has it had an effect? It's more, will they still be here when all is said and done and life returns to normal? And you could look at it very selfishly and say, no, I'd rather them, go back to whatever it is they were doing and whatever they were focusing on. But that's not right for the hobby. Anyone who doesn't want more people involved in this amazing thing that we're involved in, isn't a true advocate of the hobby. I think it's fantastic that people have finally seen the value and the enjoyment that you can get from it, and long may it continue.
Yeah, I love it, mate. I had my wife came to me the other day and she was like, one of her friends, that she made friends with another woman when we had our daughter, like at play group or whatever it was that our daughter first went to. And the other day, like, her husband was saying to her, does Molly's husband work for Futera? Like, because he's into sports cards. And I was out with some my wife's cousin and her fella at the weekend, and he was talking about, he's got a load of old Pokemon, and he was asking me, what shall I do with this stuff? And shall I get it graded? And it's really interesting now that it's kind of it's really starting to embed itself in popular culture as well. We've both, you and I have speak to Jack, mate, for different reasons. I know he's been working with you on the break stuff, and hopefully we're going to work with him on a couple of things as well, because he loves cards. So I do think the more people like that start to talk about the hobby, it's going to attract more people over. And I'm intrigued to know, mate, your experience of, like, when you talk about this to, the lads that you go to West Ham with, or family members, whoever it may be, and they're not collectors and they don't know a lot about sports cards, what type of conversations do you have with them, Frankie? Like, what types of questions do they ask?
They think you're absolutely mad. They think you're crazy.
I knew that was coming.
Absolutely mad. They cannot. Like, I have packages turn up like every day at the moment of sort of 6, 7, 8 packages. Again, I open it up and they look at it and go, what is that? Like, and then I tell them how much it cost, and they're like, what? Like, they cannot get their heads around it at all. And they find it very, very bewildering. But
have you converted any? Have you converted any yet?
Have I converted? I've tried one who's a really close friend of mine, who we do some work on business side of things. And I actually had him come into this room here when I was doing a break and sat him down next to me, and I was like, watch this, look how good this is amazing, you're going to love this. So I've really bigged it up and got him all excited. So I've sat down, I've started the box break, got about 15 minutes in, he whispered in my ear, went, yeah, I'm going to go, mate, I'll see you later. Walked out the door and went home. And I was like, I had to wait till I got off the stream. I messaged him, are you all right, mate, what happened? He said, yeah, I just couldn't sit there and watch that. I was like, fair enough. So it is each to their own. And it's I can't say I've ever really shown something to anyone personally yet, and they've gone, wow, yes, that's amazing, I want to get involved. So we've certainly managed to achieve some of that online and through social media and stuff, but never anyone personally yet.
I'm quite lucky then. My best mate has, like, started to get involved on Futera Wednesday. So he hasn't managed to drop on any of the big cards yet, but he's managed to pick up a couple of rookies and stuff. And he's got another friend who he works with who's involved in the hobby as well. And he's kind of now becoming a bit of a collector. Like, he loves the idea of getting, like you were talking about, getting these rookies and then, like, sitting on them and stuff. So maybe I'm quite lucky then. But yeah, it is interesting. Incidentally, what you're talking about there with your friend, I had that a different version of when I left my last job. So I worked, for a big corporate here in the UK, and as the marketing manager there, and it was like the complete opposite to this industry. So it was vehicle tracking, Frankie. Again, opposite end of the universe. And I remember telling people I'm going to work for Futera, and they do X, Y, and Z. They do sports cards, and they were like, "What on earth are you doing?" So it is interesting, mate. It is interesting. What players are you currently most excited about then? As a man who watches a lot of football, who are you excited about?
I have something for you here, which you're going to like this one.
Okay.
There's one man I'm waiting for on every single product, platform, whatever it may be. There is one man that I'm fully invested in and just waiting for that moment to arise. And that is Mr. Ellis Sims.
Right. I do like that one. So why are you so excited about Ellis Sims then?
I don't think there's been an English striker who has scored goals at the rate he's scored about since Jermaine Defoe. We at West Ham, we have youngsters coming through the academy who, pick up a few goals and look like a good prospect. They're never going to amount to anything. I watched the under-21s. I actually watched the under-21s game, Everton versus West Ham. And It was on the Everton YouTube channel. And this was the first time I saw him play. And they said, Ellis Sims is starting tonight. He's going to score in a minute. 2 minutes later, he scored. We had that same thing with Jermaine Defoe. Every time he played, you knew he was going to score. I don't think we've had an English striker like that scoring at the phenomenal rate that he is in the sort of youth system. And we've not seen a prospect like this for a long, long time. So that is, for me, very exciting, because we all know that strikers command value in this hobby, because we love the glamour, we love the romance of goal scorers, and they're always the most desirable. So yeah, for me, that he fits the bill perfectly. So I've earmarked him on all of the virtual platforms, and I am just waiting for the day he pops up on your website as well.
Well, hopefully, we'll be able to do something on him at some point in the future. It is Everton are an interest to us, of course, mainly pushed on by me. But no, I before in another life, I used to head up a website called Grand Old Team, the media stuff, and we used to do a show in a pub in Liverpool every week. And this was before the pandemic, obviously, and my co-host and I, the back end of the season before last, I think. So Ellis Sims has been in and around, the kind of the psyche of Evertonians for a while. And me and him, it was the back end of the season. I think we had an away game against Palace. It was a bit of a dead rubber, and I think we just went and played Czech Tucson down there. And at the time, we were saying, well, maybe it's time to throw Ellis Sims in. And this was a couple of seasons ago, so it'd be interesting to see how his development goes. I think it's slightly problematic at Everton in the sense that Dominic Calvert-Lewin kind of blocks the road a little bit, but we will see, mate. So yeah,
he got 2 in his debut for Blackpool, because he's obviously gone out on loan to Blackpool now. Scored 2 on his debut, and then in Blackpool's last game, he got man of the match, and the reports were just phenomenal. They just said he absolutely run him ragged. He got him a penalty. He didn't actually score, but that's another sign of a fantastic striker. Someone that, if they're not contributing with goals, they're contributing in other ways on the football pitch. And he was a massive part of the reason why Blackpool won that game 3-0. So for me, he showed it in the level in terms of the youth system. He's now shown it in a professional level in what is a really tough league. I mean, to do it in that league, you've got to be physical. And I love the fact he's big and strong, but he's also fast and nimble, and his goal scoring ability is just absolutely superb. So the fact that he's gone out on loan and he's hit the ground running there even gives me more confidence that he is going to be the next big thing in terms of England strikers. Yeah,
we've got a couple, not strikers so much. We have Ben Godfrey, who listeners and viewers will be aware of now, because he's been in the first team this season, but he's been terrific for us. I think the only issue with him is he's a defender, so they don't seem to be as glamorous from a card perspective, but he's certainly one to watch for the future. So you're excited about Ellis Sims then? Anybody at West Ham, bar Souček or
even Souček for me? The glamour thing is just not there enough for me. It's difficult for West Ham at the moment. We're doing amazingly well. I'm enjoying the season more than I could ever imagine. I run a channel, or I did used to run a channel called Claret and Blue Army TV. It's now changed to Isla's Army, which I'm sure we'll touch upon later.
Yeah.
But we run a lot of YouTube shows. And I said at the beginning of the season, there's only one thing that is guaranteed if David Moyes manages your club for a full season, and that's relegation. And we are now where we are, flying high and absolutely loving life. So it's unbelievable. It's come out of nowhere. I'm absolutely loving, the season and the journey that we're on. However, it's very different to the last time we had this season, which was the last season at Upton Park. We don't really have any superstars. We don't have anyone who really stands out. Like that season, we had Pyatt, and Pyatt was just, unbelievable, and it was so exciting to watch, and it was absolutely magical. We don't have that. So West Ham have always had heroes, whether it be Payet, Di Canio, whether it be Joe Coles. We've always had those flair, exciting players that really make you sit on the edge of your seat. We don't have that at the moment. So it's in terms of sort of collecting, I would be looking at previous players more than the players now. I still, like Declan Rice. I think Declan Rice will go on to captain England one day. I think he's that good. And I started to do a bit of a collection of Declan Rice. But again, it's just the fact from an investment value, he just isn't there for me. And I wouldn't be looking at long term to hold that. And even for my own personal collection, I've got so much stuff of Declan Rice here, as you can see, the poster from his England debut there. His cards just haven't really done it for me yet. So, for West Ham, it's disappointing we haven't got anyone that I'm all in on at the moment. And I wish Di Canio was around when cards existed, because I'd be picking him up left, right and centre. But unfortunately, there's not much of him about. So
there isn't, but there's a lovely, and this is me going off script now from a Futera perspective, but there is a lovely Merlin sticker of him, which I remember having, I think, when he played for Chef Wednesday. So not as appealing to you, but that sticker, when I think of 90 sticker, like I kind of think of that one. I don't know, like just that big. I don't know who made that jersey for Chef Wednesday. It was some bizarre, obscure brand, but the Chef Wednesday badge always used to have the owl on it and stuff, and he's got a big collar. I think he's got the collar up in the sticker. And some of the stickers from around that period, because I've been, again, I'll make no secret about this. I've been going back and I've been looking. I haven't purchased any actually, but I've been looking at that 96 season, Frankie. So how old are you, mate? So you said you remember France 98 as being your first tournament. How old are you?
So 96 was really the first tournament that I remember as a child, but I was probably too young to appreciate it. I remember while the games were going on, I was at that time I played for a local football club. So I remember being outside playing football because I weren't really interested in what was on the telly. So I remember the buzz of it all, and I remember the tournament. 96 was the first tournament that really does stick in my mind in terms of appreciating it. However, 98 was the first time that I really had an interest in watching it, to be quite honest.
And because I'm exactly the same. I remember playing out with friends on the street, being red hot that England-Scotland game, and my mum and dad having like people round and stuff, and going back into the house every time I heard like a cheer and stuff, but not intensive. But then France 98, like we all remember where we were sitting down to watch the Argentina game, for example. Exactly. So what's interesting to me, and I find this is probably across the board from a collector perspective, as you do kind of like start to gravitate towards like they bring back those memories. As you say, us being Englishmen, like Brits, stickers were culturally very important here. I used to get them on a Friday if I'd been good at school. Mum would get me a couple of packs and whatever. And there's something nice about that. So going back and looking at the stickers, by the way, from that era, like they're so unpolished. Like now, like they're obviously photoshopped. The images are, and the ones on the front of our cards, they're actually like official club pictures of the players, and and they look very like prestige and just beautiful. But then back in the 90s, like they were just literally taken one day at the ground, and they're all like collars all over the place and stuff, and you just wouldn't get that now.
But that's a perfect reflection on how accessible football is now to where it was back then. You could walk to a training ground and shake hands with a player. A lot of the time they had junior clubs within the stadiums where the kids could go before the matches and meet the players and things like that. It don't exist no more. And that is a perfect example of how the Premier League is now as a brand, that everything's so polished and they are these superstars that are put on such a pedestal. Everything is so pristine around them and so clean, but you don't have access to them. And there was something really nice about the fact that you could feel a lot closer to your club's players in those days. You could feel a lot closer to the club you supported, and you actually felt part of it and more involved. And you're almost now kept at arm's length, which, to be honest, I think is a real shame.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was actually worse in the early 10s, late 2000s, right? And hear me out on this, because I actually think what's happened now is you're starting to see players come, or clubs realize just how ingrained they are in their local community, and now they seem to be, they do a lot more in the community, and the players go out into the community a lot more than they did. Okay, it's in a controlled environment, but they are showing their face a little bit more. Like, and then because of social media and stuff, like, it does seem like you do get a little bit more access to them than maybe you would have had. But there was a period where I feel like around, maybe like 2000 and between 2008 to say 2012 or whatever, where literally they were just completely, you didn't hear from them, you didn't ever see them, where I do feel things have kind of changed. But obviously, yeah, we're in a different world than we were in the mid 90s, when you, as you said, you could just go to a training ground and see them. What do you think holds, what do you think this year holds for the hobby, Frankie? Where do you see things going in terms of prices and just the hobby in general?
I feel we're only really at the start of the momentum, to be quite honest. We're seeing more and more people message on a daily basis, multiple times a day, saying, I'm new to this. Can you explain what products are good value products to get involved in? What's the best way to get started in the hobby? And I'm seeing that pick up even more so at the moment. We're only happy to help, by the way. If anybody who is watching this who, doesn't have too much guidance on where to go, we're not 100% correct on everything. We can only give our opinion. We're not saying that we are the educators in this thing at all. But what we can do is offer people our time to explain our opinions on things. And we're always there if people reach out. If people want to reach out on social media or Instagram, it seems to be the platform where most people ask questions. We will take the time to respond and sort of, just answer any questions that people have. So always happy to do that. And while I'm seeing that continually accelerate and more people asking those questions, I do think we're only at the infancy of its growth at the moment. So especially when things get back to normal, work returns to normal, there's a bit more settled in the whole current situation, I think people will feel more comfortable with investing and spending even more money than what they're doing now. So as that happens, certainly the bottom market will continue to pick up. And like I said before, I think that's only good for the hobby. I think the people who want everyone to disappear again and everything to go back to how it was before, I don't really think are true advocates of the hobby, to be honest. Because if you do love it and you do think as much of it as what most of us do, then surely you want people to enjoy in that as well. I get the selfish nature of, I want product to be more accessible. If I want a box of something, I want to be able to buy it. If I want a card, I want to be able to buy it. And I want prices to drop back down. But the world moves on, and onwards and upwards, I say.
So you do loads and loads of charity stuff, don't you? Which I think is excellent. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that would be superb. So the main charity that we work with is for Isla Caton and her fight against neuroblastoma, which is a rare form of cancer in children. She's only 6 years old. She's been fighting it for 4 years now. So most of her life she has spent fighting this awful thing. We used to have a YouTube channel called Claret and Blue Army TV. We grew it to sort of 3,000 subscribers. And we then, when Isla relapsed and needed help again, because she did have a period where she'd been to have treatment in Spain and it seemed like things were going really well and everything was positive and she was a little bit clearer than she ever had been. She come back to the UK and started getting treatment on the NHS. So fundraising wasn't needed anymore because they were getting treatment through the NHS for free. And now she's relapsed quite badly again. She's in a real bad way at the moment, very poorly. So we decided to change our YouTube channel to Isla's Army. And we've been inviting people on to produce video content and to raise awareness. We've had people like Rory Jennings come on, who for me is one of the best football YouTubers at the moment. I think he's absolutely fantastic and brings a real different perspective to what we're used to. We've had some fantastic guests on there, and we quite do a lot with the Football Terrace and a few radio shows. And Robert Snodgrass has been involved and done videos for us, along with Mark Noble. James Madison's been involved. So it's really, really amazing. And while that's all great, because that does raise awareness, the everyday person who kindly gets involved to help, they're the people who make the biggest difference. And we had a £1 for Isla Day a couple of weeks ago now, and I think within 48 hours we'd raised over like £10,000. It was unbelievable. We only started this a month ago. Our first month was February of really trying to fundraise, and we raised £28,000 in total, which was unbelievable. However, while that sounds like a lot of money, typical treatments that Isla have cost like £80,000 around for the treatment. So significant money has got to be raised to try and give her the support that she so desperately needs. And the response that we've had has been overwhelming. It's been fantastic. The kindness of people, people who have donated memorabilia and products and so on, has been fantastic. And even on our last stream that we did, our last break, we had some raffles. As people were winning the raffles, they were donating the card back and then raffling it off for Isla, which was just unbelievable that, they had that much generosity to give. So we try and make it fun, because we want everyone to enjoy it. We want people to enjoy the content. We don't want it to be all sad, because otherwise people are not going to tune in. Some people find it very, very difficult to watch. And we get to the end of the video sometimes, and we then start to break down what's going on. Sometimes we have videos from Isla and pictures, and you see the viewers just drop off. And that's not because people don't want to be involved in that part of it. That's what they were there for in the first place. It's because it's so difficult to watch. It absolutely breaks your heart. But together, if we all go on this journey and Isla's army continues to do what it does, we've got the very, very best chance of winning this battle with her and giving her the support she needs. And it's amazing. We've had Tottenham fans involved, Millwall, Chelsea. Cancer has no colours. It's not about the fact that the people behind Isla's army are West Ham fans and Isla's family are West Ham. Everybody has taken to this little girl, and it's absolutely superb.
Of course, man. I mean, it is. I was looking at some of the stuff yesterday, and I think as a father as well to a little girl, not that different in age to Isla, it is tough to watch. I as I said, I think it's a very, very worthy cause, and the work that you're doing is fantastic, mate. And if I do know that we've had a conversation about something that we can maybe do here, so we'll try and pursue that as much as we can, because I think from a personal perspective, from my perspective, as I said, just the empathy that you feel anyway, but then to have a little girl, not a similar age, it impacts you even maybe a little bit more. I think.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah, it's a great cause, and as I said, if there's we'll definitely try and do something. What that will be, we don't know yet, but we'll definitely try and help here at Futera as best as we can. So now here's the big question for you, Frankie. So as a marketing guy, then I think you might be the first. We've had the first American on the other week, and now I've had the first fellow marketeer on, I think. So that's exciting, isn't it? So what would you do then if you were head of marketing at Futera, mate? What kind of things would you think you would do?
What would I do? It's very difficult, because while I love marketing and it's a real passion of mine, and from the outside you always sit there and you kind of have in the back of your mind, maybe I'll do things a little bit differently. But unless you're as close to the brand and you understand the brand direction and you understand the journey that the company wants to go on, it's very difficult to sort of have an opinion, to be quite honest. And again, in marketing, we're not the sort of people who sit here and say we know all the answers, because we don't. And that's fair. The only thing that I would, after the sort of not backlash, but after the sort of comments that were made the other day, after people really struggled to get involved with some product and it sold out unbelievably fast, from our perspective, we always make sure someone goes away with something. You've got some unbelievable numbered cards there. I think that's what everyone's after. The parallels are incredible. We've seen them coming out over the last couple of days, and we've seen some one of ones, and we've seen the sort of products that are coming out, and they're looking fantastic. But there was so much disappointment. I would love to see it done, even down to some of the other people that we've said as well, with, the way there's a drop and things sell very quickly. I would love to see it be done on a more of a raffle type system, because some people are at work, they can't log on to the site when the drop happens. So it makes it very difficult for people to actually get involved if they have work commitments. We see a lot of people going away very disappointed. If it was a raffle system, it kind of gives everyone a chance and different people a chance every single time that something is released. Yes, I think you should go on and you should, say, I want to be involved and this is a product that I want, and you should have the money in your account ready to go, because when it's drawn, it's got to be there. But and if it's not, then it goes on to the next person. But that would be something that I would like to see, because somebody like myself, I have tried to get involved in, I think the Smith Rowe I really wanted, and also the Saka I really wanted. I'm very sharp with a computer. To be quite honest, I probably could use the developers to write a script to try and nab myself one, to be honest. And it probably is something that we could do as a company. But I wouldn't feel ethical doing that. So, it is hard when you miss out and you're so keen on getting something, especially for the collectors, because the collectors are typically the ones who miss out. It's the people who are looking at it from an investment and a money making perspective that go that extra mile to try and make sure that they get one. So the Arsenal fans miss out on the Saka, for example, and it's the people who are buying it to resell it, and then they all end up on eBay. The fact that there are some already on eBay just shows you the wrong people have purchased the product. So if it was more of a raffle based system, would people be so keen to put themselves up for it? Yeah, you're going to get a few. But if it's not something that the people who are doing it from a money perspective can force their way into, you might see some of those drop away. And then also, if there was a base card option, just something a lot more simple, just a real slightly lower end card. And I know Futera, you're always that higher end, and it makes it fantastic. So you don't want to cheapen the brand. But if I've got for example, a Lewandowski Futera card up there, which is a stunning card, but it is just a standard average card. If those people who couldn't get the premium one do have an option to purchase a slightly more, regular card, then I think at least then people can still come away with something, which I think would be really good. So for me, it's always just about making sure that people don't go away disappointed when I'm involved in things. I never like to have things where, it's not accessible and it makes it really difficult. But that's again, that's what we said earlier on, marketers ruin everything. That's the way that you build desire, and scarcity and exclusivity is such a powerful thing in marketing, and we all know it is.
It really is. And no, you make some good points. The good news is we are aware of some of this stuff, and okay, we might not do things down to the T with regards to what you said there, Frankie, but we are thinking about ways in which we can try and make the system a little bit more accessible in that regard. How can we integrate, a kind of a raffle system somewhere? It might not be as I said for the initial release, and so we are aware of that. And it's very tempting, I think, as a business now in this space, to just go wild. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to stick to our values, as you say, as a brand, and we have this premium vibe, we have this premium feel, and we don't do massive runs of our cards. So therefore, people are by default going to miss out. But if we were to just go, open the floodgates on it, because there is that increased demand now, then maybe everyone would be able to get a card, but would they be as desirable as they were before? So yeah, it's really tricky, mate. And I'm glad that you, of course, I'd expect it, given the fact that you are on the other side of the fence, that you have that empathy for us from like a commercial perspective, and we're trying to build something, and you're trying to keep your customer base happy, but you've also got your own considerations to make. So yeah, it's tough, but it's all part and parcel of it, I suppose. And mate, really good feedback. It's been great to have you on. As I said, there's things that you said there we are considering, a lot of that stuff, and how can we do things differently. It's all about that iteration, isn't it? In marketing, you do something, you take the feedback, you think, did this work? Is this fair? Whatever, can we improve this? So I think that's just the key, isn't it, mate? But it's been great having you on. Keep up the great work in everything that you're doing. It's fantastic, and I think you are talking openly, you're a great ambassador for this space, and that's why, as soon as everyone started to suggest you to come onto the podcast and you were happy to do so, I was more than happy to get you on, mate. So it's been great talking. We will most definitely do this again. Hopefully next time, Frankie, we'll be able to do this over a beer in a pub somewhere. Maybe when Everton are away down south, I can nip in and see you, and we can grab a beer and do something like this in person, because it's a little bit better than over Zoom, isn't it?
Absolutely. No, that sounds fantastic. And we've got a lot of people who have hospitality boxes at the London Stadium. So hopefully we can look after you and show you a good time down at the London Stadium, and hopefully we beat you, and that'll be great.
I was just about to say, you certainly sound like a man that another man should know for sure. You've got your contacts with boxes at the London Stadium, which is great. No, but mate, it's been great talking, and I'd love to catch up in real life. So thanks for coming on the Soccer Cards and Chill podcast, Frankie. Much appreciated. Just quickly before we wrap up, where can people find you then?
So Twitter's our main platform, so it's at the Pullman UK. That is our main platform. We have started to pop up on other platforms as well. Also, the Pullman Sports Breaks over on YouTube as well is where everything's live streamed, and that's where you can find all of our live breaks.
Let's be honest, you didn't need to do that. Everyone's already well aware of where they can find you. So, all right, mate. Thanks for coming on the Soccer.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers, then.